this is your September 2023 soul story. If you have a sun rising or your moon is in the sign, it might resonate for you. It's Romy. Thanks so much for joining me, taking the time to tune into the channel. So we're opening up this month for you with the energy of the star. You know, the universe is more concerned with your evolution than your comfort zone. That said, there's something about the vibe of this month where you feel a sense of recovery, a renewed hope and optimism, and just this feeling of I'm ready. Now, even if it's just that first initiatory step towards something, even if it's just getting clear in your mind, like that shift that takes place on an energetic level is really powerful. And the stars sort of going to be guiding you all the way through the course of this month. And so what that means is that even where you're still navigating some turbulence, even where there are things that might feel less than desirable. And I have a sense that there's like a clear up energy going on around you that is going to necessitate some time to continue healing and processing. We still have this kind of stillness, this groundedness, and a feeling of just kind of coming home to yourself a little bit. There's also something quite almost like revolutionary and rewarding about the way in which revelations are being brought through for you this month. You know, it's not like they're blindsiding you so much. It just kind of feels like the natural conclusion that you can now arrive at based on where you've been, where you are, where you're trying to get to. And you know, Venus will go direct on the 3rd of the month, and so, you know, we have an opportunity now to consider the type of adjustments that we want to make in the themes that we have been invited to get up close and personal with, and that is around our money, our prosperity. It's around our innate sense of value. It also connects into those intimate, close, personal relationships. You may have felt like you went through the ringer. You may have felt incredibly challenged. You may even have experienced some beautiful blessings and things showing up. So whatever it is that you have endured or welcomed over these last few weeks, September sees you kind of considering like a whole new set of possibilities, which is refreshing, but it does need like your belief and your consistency and also changes to be made. Remember, we're also going to be through Virgo season into your second house, which, you know, will again ask you to question the ways in which your value is being appreciated or recognized. And that has to start with your appreciation and recognition within the self. And, you know, I think you will put your foot down somewhere. You know, we have to be reminded that unconditional love isn't necessarily equating to unconditional tolerance of situations. So some boundaries may be reinforced, especially in anything that is really depleting your energy. That 9 of Wands tells me that, you know, there is a kind of exhaustion that's still permeating your experience, you know, and it might be very clear for you the kind of root source of that. But remember, Virgo is also concerned with really helping us to stabilize body, mind, and soul, kind of bring through that earth medicine and help us manage things, you know, so that we can address our like day-to-day routines and the sort of practical things that are going to enable more balance to come through for us. And part of that, I feel, is about you having negotiations this month. Now, they can only happen when you feel comfortable and safe. So that's why putting your foot down or being very clear about your intentions and what it is that you need from this situation will ensure that you're not going to be further drained from it, but rather feel empowered by it. And remember, you know, the more sovereign, the more clear thinking, the more healthy you are, the less likely you are to be influenced or manipulated or controlled in any way. Not that I'm seeing that with these negotiations, but I just think it's important that you're in the right mindset and energetic place for it. So again, you know, you choose the timing of that. Don't be pushed or forced into kind of discussing or, you know, facing something too early in the month if you're still in a place of recovery or processing or kind of calling that energy back, because there will be a time that comes through this month where it feels like, yeah, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to do this. Now I'm ready to talk about this or confront this in, you know, whatever way that is arising for you so that you can see some meaningful progress. So on the 4th, we're going to see Jupiter shift retrograde, and as it backspins, remember the benevolence of its gaze will amplify and magnify what is going on within us. And so there we have this opportunity to be reminded of our gifts, of the greatness of our being, of realigning to those natural rhythms and, you know, the cycles that are sort of demonstrating to us the kind of natural ebb and flow of life. And one of the things that Jupiter retrograde, especially in Taurus, and we have Empress also ruled by Taurus here, so that again, there's like this huge amplification around that 2nd house for you in September. But one of the things that Jupiter can really help us do is get into this mindset of acting as if. So when we address the thoughts that we think, the energy we express, like the life that we want, and we start to embody it as if it's already happened, and we do that. In fact, we create a whole strategy and a plan around it. So detail it out, you know. How would I act? What would be my day? You know, what would it feel like? How would I move? How would I show up? And so that strategy and implementation through the retrograde means that when Jupiter goes direct and the sort of floodgates open energetically around that, you've already kind of cultivated the space to allow a lot of these manifestations to show up physically and tangibly in your reality. And September is a month for planning. September is a month for the strategy to start to reveal itself. Even if it's just the next logical step, it's okay. We don't necessarily have to have everything pinned down. We're still in this sort of feeling of flux a little bit. Yeah, we still have Mercury retrograde through to the 15th, a whole host of other planets, you know, still in their slumber time. And so that slowdown and that quiet reflection is really conducive to that type of a strategy and that type of kind of curiosity to just play around with different possibilities a little bit. So the Sun's going to trine Jupiter on the 8th, and you know that Empress is telling me that there's something kind of blossoming around that time for you, a blessing that comes in, a returning to something that you're really good at or that puts you in a sort of place where your confidence is naturally high. So that might be a good time of the month to consider something that you need to deal with or to face, okay? As we approach mid-month, we come towards some shifting energies with the asteroid goddesses. Oh, cards flipping there. So we have Pallas Athena shifting out of Virgo into the sign of Libra. We also have Mars in Libra right now, and so the diplomat is what we want to try to embody and learn from. This will help with the negotiations that you need to have or the discussions that are important. Temperance, again, along with the star, is bringing some beautiful healing through for you in this month. And, you know, there's also that recognition that you need to be a little bit patient with yourself through the course of this month. Sometimes when we, you know, transition and we start to implement a new routine or something different in our world, and remember, the spiritual lesson is always about having to take that final action. It's not enough just to accept and acknowledge what's happened to you. You then have to consider and reflect on what you now need to change or what's shifted within you that requires a different type of response from you. That's when you get the green light to move on from the experience instead of staying in the perpetual cycle of it, you know, continuously showing up in, you know, one guise or another. But temperance says, like, as we're patient with ourselves to sort of find how best we can balance things out, and, you know, when you work on that within yourself, that's going to be the mirror to people showing up in a better way, but also opportunities being able to be seen by you more clearly, okay? Because I'm being shown that something that wants to come in for you this month, which I do think, as I said, is quite rewarding and revolutionary, could be missed because you are distracted in the continuing thoughts around what you've just been through or what you're thinking about or what you're making it mean. And, you know, that's necessary and we absolutely have to continue doing that soul tending, but I still need you to kind of keep quite open and focused as to what's coming in towards you, because there's something here to kind of grasp and harness and say, yes, it is my time. This is for me. I'm ready for this. And I want to kind of move forward. And, you know, there's a thoughtfulness that comes in here. We don't always want to rock the boat when we have this kind of a Libran energy around us. And sometimes we can get a little bit indecisive with things, and even Temperance, as we keep weighing up the options, you know, or trying to find like the perfect time or the perfect experience, then, you know, again, it can sort of pass us by. And it's not like we ever run out of opportunities, but there's just something about your readiness to kind of see the change and to kind of harness that and make progress this month, just for your own like well-being and also your mental health, because I just think there's just something about you just kind of needing to see that now, like the recognition of that shift in your world is really important. And the receiving does come often, you know, when we do allow things to take their natural course and we're not in an energy of forcing. September is not a forcing month. Far from it. It's, you know, it's a time where we just, you know, let the universe like deliver these important signposts for us. We reflect, we consider how we're going to be changing the strategy, we start to take the action, but, you know, nothing is forced here. So your King of Cups, water energy, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, but also deeply reflective of how deep you are this month, actually. I think there's a sensitivity that you're bringing to situations. And this may be pertaining to something where you either feel you've been misunderstood, yeah, or there's a possibility of being misunderstood, but you kind of know that you have to say or do this anyway. And we do remind you, Leo, that you're not defined by that. So we also have this kind of willingness, this openness, this heart energy that comes through, you know, with a level of emotional maturity to be able to handle a situation that even a few weeks ago you might have just lost the rag with. You might have just not been in a place where you could stay calm enough to be able to listen or hear or not respond or feel deeply triggered by something. So I think it puts you in a more compassionate, more, you know, a wise kind of space, if you like. And I think you will hear a lot more and you will receive a lot more when you can come forth with that kind of an energy. Again, it doesn't need to necessarily mean that you're accepting things. It just means that you're willing to understand. And I think you do need to understand something. There's been confusion or this misunderstanding that's prevented you from being able to truly make sense and connect the dots, which has almost caused an impasse for you. And so that clarity, as it gets discussed and it sort of clears through the month of September, is going to be really important. So the new moon comes in on the 14th in Virgo. Mercury shifts direct the next day. And here there's this requirement, I think, and it's kind of linking into like your spiritual journey. So as you assess and consider sort of what you've been doing by way of your own practices and the things that support you and how you're helping yourself to evolve, you know, it is down to us. Our personal growth is down to our own personal accountability and responsibility to, you know, identify and to go seek solutions for ourselves to help us. And there's something about that willingness from you around that mid-month to say, you know what, it's time for me to deal with this. And I know that there's help out there, or I know that there are things that I can research or investigate or, you know, be taught or inspired by. And I think that almost brings about like opportunities for new contacts, for potentially like new mentors, new gurus, new teachers, new coaches, even new friendships, you know, formed that are going to be very informative for you, very educational, very knowledgeable in something that you need to understand or that will help propel you forward. So it's a really beautiful time to kind of welcome that in a little bit, yeah? I think you yourself will also be a source of inspiration for somebody, and I think that's somebody very close to home. You know, they will have seen a change in you and be quite surprised, but in a good way, that you've been able to sort of allow that metamorphosis to kind of happen and take place. You know, you may find the Seven of Cups sort of, you know, bringing through like new possibilities and choices, but it's almost like none of them are just quite right. And so the reason you may feel a little conflicted as to which direction or which option or, what to go forward with is because none of them are completely syncing or aligning for you. Now, what I feel in regards to this is it doesn't mean that you can't embark or experiment or explore the idea of what one or more of these might mean for you. I think there's almost like a requirement that in September you give yourself a chance to do that. Remembering in retrograde energy, sometimes we bring the past version of ourselves, and sometimes it's situations that get brought back around where we have felt a little bit unloved, unrecognized, or we've experienced some kind of a challenge. So you also want to consider the version of you that you're bringing into the equation as you consider these options and possibilities. What I'll say though is if none of them are feeling quite right, like don't worry, because there's something that will evolve or expand from one of them. You yourself may be able to make the adjustment or add something else to it, and it then becomes right. It then becomes the clear way forward. Most important thing for you this month is that you just recognize that you are ready and willing and open to kind of move into that sort of a next pathway, that new cycle. And the confusion that can sometimes come from the Seven of Cups is also a little illusionary. So what you're making it mean or what you're seeing by way of behavior or the discussions that have ensued with somebody might not also be like the full picture. And, we have to be careful that our emotions, there's a kind of passive aggressive tendency that can surface sometimes through Libra season, right? So we need to be mindful that, if we're not clearly articulating what we think, what we feel, what we need, what's going on. And, therefore, if we're not seeing that from other people, it has more likely tendency to kind of go underground, and then we start to see some of that behavior coming through. So the sun shifts into Libra on the 22nd, and we'll have Equinox arrival to kind of help rebalance and just reorientate you. There's something about you just finding your own natural rhythm around this time. And it also feels to me like around that equinox, something that you have been working on patiently, consistently, with dedication, where you have seen a lackluster result, or you felt like somehow overlooked, or there's just been like lack of recognition or something, or the timing just hasn't quite been right for this. There's definitely like a major kind of shift that comes, and some validation of like it was worthwhile, like you were not off on a wild goose chase. You have some important conversations taking place around that time. I want to remind you to consider carefully what your true intentions have been, and if they're changing and shifting, which is okay and it's natural as you move through a cycle, in terms of what you're investing your time and energy towards. And really like making sure that you get crystal clear with that. Now this month, the soul guided meditations that I have for you are exploring a brand new equinox energy activation, but also in the shadow, we're going to explore intentions and your why. We make the unconscious conscious with this shadow work to really understand some of the drivers that you may not be aware of, that are part of your storyline and could even be kind of delaying or causing resistance to something you're trying to manifest, or you seeing the results that you're hoping for or expecting. So check them out. The links are in the comment and description box underneath. But as you see that shift and change, there's like, again, this renewed optimism and hope that kind of wraps itself around you. And this is really powerful, because then as we come up toward the energy of the full moon in Aries on the 29th, and we have some nice surprise twists coming in connected to that full moon as well, even though it can be a bit disruptive, like the change, and it can also happen quite quickly. So be prepared for some of that to sort of almost necessitate a very immediate response from you, is what I want to say. But the surprise just feels like unexpected but progressive. So it's almost like you get to kind of skip a few levels, you get to sort of move past something. So something that you thought was going to take way, way longer all of a sudden around that time is showing you the possibility that actually it can be done much sooner. And that's a game-changing moment. Actually, I feel like there'll be a huge sense of relief, but also a little excitement, as it should, as you consider then what that means. And again, this is what I'm talking about with this sort of revolutionary and rewarding scenarios that seem to be peppered through your entire month. But it does require that belief and consistency from you as you open yourself up to kind of what can come through, despite what may feel like an absolute destitute situation or something that's hopeless. Far from it. I'm seeing a very hopeful energy coming through, and we want you feeling in control and empowered and nurturing and cultivating that experience as much as you possibly can. So if you're new to the channel, we cover the last 3 cards in the extended reading, Leo. I talk for another 30 minutes or so, and you'll also receive insights around a personal question and a relationship card as well. I'm just going to go ahead and clarify the main read here so we see the direction that we will be taking some of these messages for you. All the decks I use are listed below for your reference. Nice energies coming in there. 4 of Wands, 5 of Wands and the Devil. Queen of Swords and the Moon. This King of Cups, the Lovers. There's definitely a sense of being able to bridge the distance or have more intimacy in the conversations or the connections that are coming through. But I think, as I said, it still demands that you kind of put your foot down and you're very clear on, how you want to be treated, how you want to be received, how you want to be recognized. You set the tone this month. Remember that. If not, you end up in a incredibly reactive place where you're going to feel like you keep getting sort of almost like taken advantage of. Like, that's the shadow side of this, when you don't step up. And remember, the universe is always teaching us, but it teaches us through giving us opportunities to demonstrate the change from what we've endured or what we've gone through or what we've learnt, what we've come to understand, what we've healed. So I'm just going to go ahead and sort of look at some oracle cards here. Let's see what messages are going to join this. So this is Life Soul Vision, which is my own deck if you're new to the channel. You can have a look at this deck along with my book Moon Musings. These sacred titles just here to support you in your soul journey. And if you like my work, please do take time to check them out. Energy Conversations. We have Blossoming Soul Song. Love that, along with the Empress. Spirit Bear. Eclipse Revelations. Of course, we're going to be... Well, you'll already be feeling the reverberations of that. In October we have the Libra eclipse. We're moving into that axis where we are looking at the me versus we polarity. Can create that feeling of feeling torn, where we're sort of striving ahead to be self-sufficient and also having to address where codependency is still active within our pathways. So many belief systems and karmic stories getting explored through those eclipses, remember. Okay, you have the energy of commitment, and we will pull one more to see what wants to join this cosmic conversation, Leo. All right, you have the Owl and Hop, Wisdom. Beautiful. Okay, we'll explore these in the extended version. I hope you'll join me. I wish you a really beautiful month. Enjoy Equinox. Take time to celebrate and, harness the energy for your rituals. Please check out my Equinox activation, and I'll see you again next time. You take care.